Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we are diving deep into the incredible cat and mouse game of cybersecurity. We're going to look at how hackers try to break in and, more importantly, how the good guys can set the perfect trap to catch them.
All right, let's set the scene. Think of a server's SSH port, that's the secure connection for admins, as this super fortified digital front door. So, the big question is, how in the world do attackers actually get through it?
Well, to really get this, we have to put on our black hats for a minute and think like an attacker. In the security world, this is what they call the red team perspective. You know, the offense.
The go-to method is often something called a brute force attack. And the strategy is, well, it's pretty simple, but it can be brutally effective. It's basically like having a robot that tries every single key on a massive keychain until eventually one just clicks.
Now, an attacker isn't going to sit there typing in passwords one by one. No way! They use specialized weapons, and a really popular one is a tool called Hydra. It's built to do one thing and one thing only: launch these attacks at an absolutely blistering speed.
Of course, a weapon like Hydra needs ammunition, and that comes in the form of what are called word lists. These are just giant text files, but they're packed with millions, literally millions of potential passwords, a lot of which come from previous data breaches. You might have even heard of a famous one called rocku.txt. For a demo, though, you'd use a much shorter list, just to speed things up.
And, setting up this attack is surprisingly straightforward. The attacker just runs a command that tells Hydra exactly what to do. The L flag says the login name is admin, the P points it to that password file we just talked about, and T tells it how many guesses to try at the same time. Then they just aim it at the server's IP address, and that's it.
And boom! Hydra just churns through that list, and in just a few moments, it gets a hit. It spits out the valid login and password. And just like that, the attacker is in. The digital door is wide open. Kinda scary how easy that was, right? So let's switch hats. How do you possibly defend against something like that? It's time to look at this from the blue team perspective and see how we can spot these attacks as they happen. So, one of the most clever defensive tools out there isn't a bigger wall or a stronger lock. It's a trap. It's called a honeypot. It's basically a decoy server that looks totally real and inviting to an attacker, but its only job is to catch them red-handed. To build this trap, defenders can use a fantastic open-source tool called Cowrie. It's specifically designed to mimic a real SSH server perfectly, making it a super attractive target for anyone trying to brute force their way inside.
And setting up this digital tripwire? It's actually pretty straightforward. You download the code, you create a safe, isolated little sandbox for it to run in, install its parts, and then you make one really important tweak to make the trap completely invisible.
The secret sauce here, the real magic, is something called port forwarding. See, attackers are programmed to look for SSH on port 22. That's the default. So the defender sets up a rule that just silently redirects any traffic heading for port 22 over to our honeypot, which is listening on a different port, 2222. The attacker has absolutely no idea they'd been rerouted to a decoy. Okay, so the stage is set, the attack is ready to launch, and our trap is armed and waiting. So what happens when we unleash that exact same Hydra attack, but this time against our server that's secretly running the Cowrie honeypot?
The second the attack begins, check this out. The honeypot's logs just explode with activity. We instantly see the attacker's IP address, we see every single password they try, one after another, all logged in perfect detail. And notice, even when it tries the correct password, it's logged as a failure. The honeypot never actually lets them in.
And this is why this is such a game changer. The honeypot completely flips the script. What was a quiet, stealthy attack just trying keys in the dark has now been turned into a loud, flashing alarm bell. The defender has total visibility.
And this log data, it is pure gold for a defender. You can immediately identify and block the attacker's IP. You get to see what usernames and passwords they're using, which gives you amazing intelligence. And you can feed all of this info into a bigger security system to automatically trigger alerts and protect your entire network.
So if this whole back and forth, this chess match between offense and defense gets you excited, you might be thinking, hey, how can I learn to do this stuff? For good, of course.
Well,
The great news is there are some amazing and totally free resources out there. The Cisco Networking Academy has a massive 70-plus hour course on ethical hacking, and it even comes with a lab environment so you can actually practice. You can even earn a certification by completing challenges that prove you've got the skills.
At the end of the day, understanding both sides of the coin, the attack and the defense, is what modern cybersecurity is all about. And the tools are always changing, which kind of leaves us with one final question for you. What critical cybersecurity tool should we break down in our next explainer?